When 70-year-old Fred accidentally wheeled into the gorilla enclosure, a massive silverback charged straight at him at full speed. What happened in the next 60 seconds left everyone who witnessed it absolutely speechless. Before you watch, remember to like and subscribe so you don't miss another touching story like this one, and write in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. Fred Wilson's heart pounded as he stared at the heavy metal gate. It had slammed shut behind his wheelchair with a deafening clang, and there was no handle on the inside. "Help!" His voice echoed uselessly off concrete walls. The 70-year-old had gotten separated from his granddaughter Sarah and daughter-in-law Jennifer at the zoo, taken a wrong turn through a restricted area, and somehow ended up trapped in this corridor. And now, as the narrow passage opened into a large outdoor enclosure, he realized his terrible mistake. He wasn't alone. 50 yards ahead, a group of massive gorillas turned to stare directly at him. Fred's wheelchair froze. His breath caught in his throat. 4 gorillas, each one powerfully built, their black fur gleaming in the late afternoon sun, had stopped what they were doing and were now focused entirely on him. The nearest one, young but heavily muscled, lifted its head. Its nostrils flared. Its eyes locked on Fred with unmistakable hostility. A deep, rumbling growl filled the air. Fred's hands gripped his wheelchair armrests, knuckles turning white. He couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Every instinct screamed danger. Then the young gorilla stood upright, towering at least 6 feet tall, its chest broad and powerful, muscles rippling beneath its coat. And it charged. The ground shook with every stride. Dirt exploded with each footfall, 30 feet, 20. The gorilla's eyes blazed with aggression, its massive arms pumping as it closed the distance with terrifying speed. Fred couldn't scream, couldn't think. He could only watch as this wall of muscle and fury barreled toward him. 10 feet. A colossal shadow leapt between them. The impact was like thunder. 2 giants collided in an explosion of dust and raw power that shook the entire enclosure. Fred opened his eyes. He hadn't even realized he'd closed them, to see the young aggressor pinned to the ground by an even larger gorilla. This one was older, more imposing, with distinctive gray streaks mixed into its black fur. Its eyes blazed not with mindless rage, but with absolute authority. The alpha silverback. The young gorilla struggled beneath the alpha's weight, groaning and thrashing. But the elder pressed harder, his massive hand on the younger one's shoulder. A low, commanding growl rumbled from deep in his chest. Finally, the young gorilla went still. It bowed its head in submission, and when the alpha released him, the younger male backed away slowly, keeping his eyes down. Then the great silverback turned toward Fred. Fred's breath caught again. Was he out of one danger and into another? But as the massive gorilla approached, each step deliberate and careful, Fred saw something unexpected in those dark, intelligent eyes. Not anger, not aggression, curiosity, and something else. Something that looked almost like concern. The silverback stopped just 2 yards away from Fred's wheelchair. Slowly, carefully, he lowered himself into a crouch, bringing his enormous head down to Fred's level. Then he did something extraordinary. He reached out one massive hand toward Fred, palm open, fingers relaxed, not threatening. The gesture was unmistakable, as if to say, "I won't hurt you." Fred's hand trembled on his armrest, but what he saw in the gorilla's eyes wasn't violence. It was protection, reassurance. A woman's voice suddenly called from somewhere beyond Fred's view. "Casey, Keezy, easy now." The gorilla's head turned slightly at the name, but his eyes came back to Fred, and in that moment Fred understood. This magnificent creature was called Casey, and somehow, against all logic, Casey had chosen to protect him. But that fragile moment of peace shattered in an instant. The young gorilla, still seething from his defeat and humiliation, suddenly lunged forward from the side. Not at Kessie this time, but directly at Fred. Kessie roared and swatted the attacker away with devastating force, but not before the young gorilla's massive arm struck Fred's wheelchair like a wrecking ball. The wheelchair tipped violently sideways. Fred felt himself falling, the world spinning, and then, crack! His head struck a rock jutting from the soil. Pain exploded through his skull like lightning. His vision blurred immediately, the world spinning as waves of dizziness overwhelmed him. Fred lay there, stunned, unable to move. His wheelchair lay overturned beside him. Everything swam in and out of focus, colors bleeding together. Through the haze, he heard Kessie's furious roar as the silverback drove the young aggressor back with terrifying force, sending him fleeing to the far corner of the enclosure. Then Kessie was beside Fred, his massive frame blocking out the sun. The gorilla made a soft, concerned sound, almost like a whimper, as he looked down at Fred's injury. "No!" a woman's voice screamed from much closer now. "Oh my God!" Emma Lawson, senior keeper at the zoo, came running into view. Behind her, head keeper Thomas Rivera appeared with a tranquilizer rifle raised. "Emma, get back," Thomas shouted. "The man's injured. This could trigger an attack." But Kessie did the opposite of what Thomas feared. The silverback positioned himself over Fred's body like a living shield, his massive frame creating a protective barrier between Fred and everyone else. He made no move to harm Fred. Instead, he gently touched Fred's shoulder with one finger, making that same soft, worried sound. "Thomas," Emma breathed, staring in disbelief. He's protecting him, even now." Fred groaned, his eyes fluttering open. Everything was blurry. A massive bruise was already forming above his eye, the area swelling rapidly. What happened?" "Sir, stay still," Emma called out carefully. "You're injured. We're going to help you." She took a cautious step forward. Kessie immediately shifted position, blocking her path with a low, warning growl. Emma's radio crackled to life. "Emma, this is Morrison. What's your status?" Dr. Richard Morrison was the zoo's director, a man who ran the facility like a business, putting protocol and liability above all else. "Sir, we have an elderly visitor in the gorilla enclosure," Emma reported, keeping her voice calm despite the terror squeezing her chest. "He's seriously injured, severe head trauma, and Kessie is guarding him." "Guarding him?" Morrison's voice was sharp and disbelieving. "That's impossible. That animal is dangerous. Sedate it immediately and extract the visitor." "Dr. Morrison, sedation takes at least 10 minutes to work. This man doesn't have 10 minutes. "That's an order, Emma. Sedate it now, or I'm authorizing lethal force." Emma looked at Thomas, who stood with his finger near the tranquilizer trigger, his face grim. "Sir, if we force extraction, Kessie will see us as a threat and attack. The only safe option is to let me treat him where he is." "Absolutely not." Morrison's voice went up an octave. "You are not entering that enclosure with an aggressive gorilla." "Kessie isn't aggressive, sir. He's protective. There's a difference." "Emma Lawson, if you enter that enclosure against direct orders, you'll be terminated immediately. Do you understand me?" Emma looked at Fred, lying motionless on the ground, clearly unconscious from the head injury. She looked at Kessie, standing guard over him with unmistakable determination. Then she looked at Thomas and nodded once. "With all due respect, Dr. Morrison," Emma said into the radio, "I'm already in the enclosure, and I'm going to save this man's life." She switched off the radio before Morrison could respond. Thomas lowered his rifle slightly. "Emma, if this goes wrong—" "Then you do what you have to do," Emma said quietly. "But give me a chance first. cover me, but don't shoot unless I'm in immediate danger." She turned toward Cassie, slowly lowering herself to a crouch to appear less threatening. Her medical kit hung from her shoulder. She'd grabbed it the moment she'd heard about the breach. "Casey," Emma said softly, her voice gentle and calm despite her racing heart. "You know me, big guy. We've known each other for 12 years. I helped bottle feed you when you first came here. You trust me." Cassie's dark eyes moved between Emma and Fred, calculating, assessing. "I want to help him, Casey. Just like you're helping him. He's hurt, and he needs both of us. We can protect him together." For a long, tense moment, Casey didn't move. His massive shoulders remained squared, his body positioned defensively over Fred. Then, incredibly, he shifted slightly to the side, not leaving Fred's side but allowing a narrow path for Emma to approach. "That's it, Casey," Emma whispered, taking a slow step forward. "Good boy. We're both his friends. We both want to help him." She inched closer, one careful step at a time. Casey watched her every movement, but didn't growl or make any threatening gestures. When Emma finally reached Fred's side, she knelt beside him and immediately opened her medical kit. A large, swollen area was forming on the side of his head where he'd struck the rock. His breathing was rapid and shallow, classic signs of shock. "Sir, I'm Emma. I'm a trained first responder. Can you hear me?" "My head," Fred managed, his voice weak and confused. Can't think straight." Emma carefully checked the injury, gently pressing around the swollen area to assess the damage. Fred winced, but didn't pull away. "I know it hurts," Emma said, "but I need to check for serious injury." Cassie leaned in closer, his massive head just inches from Emma's shoulder, watching intently as she worked. His breath was warm against her neck, but his posture remained calm, almost approving. Emma checked Fred's pulse, thready and weak. His skin was pale and clammy. "Possible severe concussion, definitely in shock," she muttered. "Blood pressure's probably dropping fast." She worked quickly, stabilizing his head and neck while checking for other injuries. No obvious broken bones, but the head trauma was serious. Then Fred's eyes rolled back. His body went completely limp. "No, no, no!" Emma's fingers flew to his neck, searching for a pulse. It was there, but barely. Weak, irregular, fading. "Thomas," Emma shouted without turning around. "His heart rate is dropping critically. I need to do CPR." "Emma, get out of there," Thomas called back, but his voice was uncertain now, conflicted. Emma looked at Casey. "I'm going to do something that might look scary, but I'm helping him. Do you understand? I'm saving our friend." She didn't know if Casey understood her words, but something in his eyes shifted. He took a half step back, giving her more room to work. Emma positioned her hands on Fred's chest, lacing her fingers together. "Come on, Fred, stay with me." She started compressions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Cassie suddenly stood up to his full height, agitated. He made a loud, distressed sound, something between a roar and a cry of alarm. "Cassie, it's okay." Emma kept compressing, her voice firm but reassuring. "I know it looks bad, but I'm helping him. I'm saving him." 15 compressions. 20. 30. Cassie paced in a tight circle, his massive hands clenching and unclenching. He kept looking at Fred, then at Emma, then back at Fred, clearly disturbed by what he was seeing but not attacking. Emma checked Fred's pulse again. Still weak, still irregular. "Come on, Fred, don't you dare give up on me." She started another round of compressions. Her arms burned with the effort, sweat dripping down her face despite the cool evening air. Cassie suddenly stopped pacing and crouched beside them again, so close that Emma could feel the heat radiating from his enormous body. He made a soft sound, questioning, worried. "He's going to be okay," Emma said, as much to herself as to Casey. "He has to be okay." 40 compressions. 50, 60. Emma checked again. The pulse was there, stronger now, more regular. "That's it," she whispered. "Come on, Fred, come back to us." Fred suddenly gasped, a deep, shuddering breath that rattled in his chest. His eyes fluttered open, confused and unfocused. "That's it!" Emma nearly sobbed with relief. "You're okay. You're going to be okay." Casey immediately relaxed. He lowered himself back down, making that soft, contented sound again, as if he'd understood all along that Emma was helping, and now he could see that Fred was alive. Emma quickly stabilized Fred's head and neck, working with practiced efficiency. The swelling was concerning, and he'd need a CT scan at a hospital to rule out serious injury. She checked his vitals again. Pulse was stabilizing. Color was slowly returning to his face. "We need to get you to a hospital," Emma told Fred gently. Emma looked at Casey. "We need to take Fred to safety now. Will you let us?" Casey stared at Fred, then slowly touched his hand with one massive finger, just for a second. Then he stepped back. Thomas appeared with a stretcher. They lifted Fred carefully. Casey walked alongside them to the gate, watching, protecting. At the gate, Casey stopped and pressed one hand against the fence. "I won't forget you," Fred whispered. Outside, paramedics loaded Fred into an ambulance. Sarah and Jennifer rushed forward. "Grandpa!" "I made a friend," Fred managed, smiling. Dr. Morrison arrived. "Emma, you directly disobeyed." "She saved my life," Fred interrupted. "Her and that gorilla both." Morrison looked at Casey, still at the fence. "We'll discuss this later." 3 weeks later, Fred returned. When Casey saw him, the silverback approached the fence immediately. He reached through the bars and plucked a green leaf from inside, extending it toward Fred, a gift. Fred took it with trembling hands. "Thank you, my friend." Because sometimes the most unexpected friendships form in the most dangerous moments. And the strongest bonds transcend every difference between us. Did you enjoy this story? Would you disobey your boss to save a life? Yes or no? Let us know in the comments below. If you like the story, subscribe to this channel and leave a like. Thanks so much for listening. See you in the next video. Have a great day.